Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for Tuesday, April 23rd, 2019. This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Sciretta. And on today's podcast, I'm going to give you my quick, spoiler-free reaction of Avengers Endgame, and I will play for you my interview with the Russo brothers, Joe and Anthony Russo, the filmmakers behind this, Captain America Civil War, Captain America Winter Soldier, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. And this interview is also completely spoiler-free because they were not willing to talk about any plot details whatsoever. So you can enjoy this entire podcast before seeing the movie itself. First up, I went to the world premiere last night in downtown Los Angeles. And guys, I love this movie. This is somehow like much better than Infinity War for me. I wasn't expecting this movie to be so emotional. It's the most emotional MCU movie by far. I cried somewhere like about a dozen times throughout this film. And to give you perspective, I maybe teared up a little during the Spider-Man thing in Infinity War. This is such a crowd-pleasing movie. It's filled with so much incredible fan service. And I know fan service is used as a bad word, but in this movie, you'll see what I mean. It's so good. This film is a gigantic tribute to the last 10 years, the last decade of Marvel Studios, and there is, you know how you've seen the splash page action scene in Joss Whedon's Avengers or the Russo brothers' Civil War? The splash page action scene at the core of this movie is 100 times as big and like perfectly encapsulates comic book. Like a big comic book fight to me. Like for me, the Battle of Wakanda was not this. This is I don't know. There's a lot of laughs. This was a premiere, and usually at premieres they are a little bit more. They clap a little bit more than a normal audience. That said, usually at a premiere they probably only clap like 3 or 4 times or something like that. During the screening, I want to say the audience erupted into applause probably 36 times throughout this film. There's just like so many great moments. I do think this is a movie that rewards you for being a fan and having seen all the other films more so than any other film in the MCU. Like this is the first like sequel that really relies on you having seen everything. I think I was surprised that this movie brings this 10 years to such a spectacular conclusion. It's such a great bookend to the first 10 years of the MCU, the Infinity Saga. Okay, so there you have it. I did not say anything, did not reveal anything about the movie, although after you see it, then you can connect the dots on some of these things. And if you're looking to read some other early, spoiler-free reactions to Avengers Endgame, head on over to slashfilm.com. We have an early buzz article. I'll link it in the show notes so you can avoid the spoilers and get the, just the essence of people's reactions. But I'll tell you, it was all positive. Okay, up next, guys. I got a chance 2 weeks ago to sit down with the Russo brothers, Joe and Anthony Russo, and talk about Avengers Endgame, but we didn't really do that much talking about Avengers Endgame because they weren't really willing to talk much about it. So again, no worry of being spoiled here in this interview. I think it's a delightful conversation. Hopefully you will agree. Here's my talk with Joe and Anthony Russo. Hey, how are you guys?
Good, how are you?
Thank you. So this is one of the toughest interviews of my career because I've seen nothing.
You want to talk about bass fishing?
Can we talk about the song that starts off the footage we saw?
Well, you know what? We don't want to give any context to any of the footage because what we don't want to do is like.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, sorry.
Can you tell me? We know Stan Lee has a cameo in this movie. Did his death affect that at all?
It did not affect. We had already shot his cameo prior to his death, but this is the last filmed cameo that Stan did.
On the previous film, you guys were saying that Thanos is the main character, and I know this is an ensemble movie, but if you had a gun to your head, and I was like, who is the main character of this movie? Who would you say?
Now we won't tell you what specifics, but we will say this: that the trap with two movies that are part of a series like this is that they ultimately can feel like the same film. A way to differentiate those movies is through tone and through point of view. So we will say that Endgame has a different tone than Infinity War, and it certainly is told from a different point of view.
I love talking to you guys because you guys are film fans, and even on like Winter Soldier, you're telling us about all these like films that you watched in anticipation for that. Now, I'm not trying to dig for plot spoilers. I know you're talking about tone. Like, I know you watch stuff for tone and even like action stuff. Is there anything you can talk about, like what films you watched in anticipation for making them?
Interestingly enough, Endgame is the one movie that we didn't.
We'll use references.
Yeah, we'll use references for common language for the crew, for the actors, for them to understand what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And I think because we were bringing a more unique tone to the stuff we were doing in the MCU, it was important for us to point to that through other movies. But as people started to understand that what our requirements were, we wanted edge, psychological realism, surprises, subversiveness. We needed less references for people, and so by the time we got to the fourth film, we weren't using any at that point. Everybody just understood what the aesthetic was.
I also think this is another reason why, and this is an interesting question because this is kind of stuff. It's rare when Joe and I get to an area that we haven't even talked about yet. But
so
it's
like a good question.
That's a good question. We haven't even, but I also think it might be because on those other movies, we're all about moving the MCU forward. On this movie, there was we weren't moving the MCU anywhere. This movie was supposed to end the 22 movie run. So the movies that we were looking at for this movie were the 21 movies that had preceded it. That was really what was informing this movie were the Marvel movies themselves.
Yeah. Not related to this movie, but if I had to ask you what your favorite time travel movie is of all time, what would you say?
Well, it's hard not to pick Back to the Future.
Yeah, I think Alan Silvestri would get really upset. You're going to say Back to the Future.
That's my favorite as well. I know a lot of people when the footage came out of in the trailers of Captain Marvel in this movie, there were some reactions from female fans of her look being different. So I'm wondering if you guys could address that. Like, is there?
Yeah, this was. I mean, first of all, we give all the actors ownership over their look. I mean, that's not something that, frankly, we have a lot of.
We set the parameters certainly in terms of what we need. But
I mean, every hairstyle that Scarlett Johansson has had in every movie that we've done with her has come from Scarlett Johansson. I mean, it's not like they know these characters better than we do. So we empower them to have ownership over it.
Yeah.
We don't sit in makeup trailers and talk to people about how much or how little makeup. This was Bree's first time playing the character. And she
did it before she filmed Captain Marvel.
Yeah, she did it before she filmed Captain Marvel. I think she was experimenting with what the character was, and those were the choices that she and her hair and makeup team had made, and and then I think as she started to gain a deeper understanding of the character, especially as she approached her own movie, she started to make different choices, and as an artist, she should be afforded that right to make whatever choices she wants to make.
Yeah, sure. I think one thing I'm anticipating with this movie is, since you guys subverted expectations so hugely with the end of the last film, I'm expecting when the status quo kind of goes back towards normal-ish, that people are going to complain about lasting consequences in the MCU. So I'm wondering, like, how is that on your mind when you're making this? Like, how do you, like, what are you thinking about, like, when you're like, we need to make things matter?
Well, we've always said from the beginning, you need real stakes. You know, we have a firm belief that stories and characters have value because there's a real risk and a real jeopardy to what they are. So we have that principle is fully at work in Endgame. You know, there's no...
It's called Endgame for a reason. And I think we only stuck around to do, these two movies because they wanted to tell an ending story. And we feel like nothing has value unless there's an ending. And so we were excited by that. We were excited by the fact that, for a commercial movie, probably the most risky thing done in the history of commercial movies is most expensive movie ever made. We kill half the characters at the end of the movie. That's crazy when you sort of think about it. It's insane. But they allowed us to do it, and then we're going to make equally challenging choices in Endgame. And I think that's why we're here, and that's why we stuck around.
And I would just say, the analogy would be Civil War was about breaking up the Avengers and destroying the relationship between Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. And they stayed broken up in Infinity War. Arguably that was their downfall in Infinity War. We showed you a whole movie where the Avengers never fought together as a team. It's carrying forward those story ideas.
The ramifications and using disruption and subversive ideas, and then making sure that those ideas stick.
I know when Infinity War came out, someone asked you if the name of the title was in that movie. And there was the word Endgame in that movie, so I'm wondering, did you lie to the press, or...
No one ever said Avengers Infinity War.
Avengers Endgame.
Exactly.
Listen, at the end of the day, this is a year before a movie gets released. And we are constantly changing our minds. And these are iterative processes, and they're creative processes. It is impossible to commit to anything with any kind of clarity a year before you're about to release some content. Because who knows, your DP could accidentally put the title on his resume and then we throw it out. There's a million reasons why that may or may not be the title for the movie. And until we sit in a room and we watch a trailer with the title on it, then we all look at each other and say, are we running with this title? That's usually when the title sticks to a movie. So when people are asking us questions a year before release, and look, they have the right, and that's their job, but we also have the right, and it's our job to protect the creative integrity of our choices. And we don't want to be trapped into choices in the same way that a writer wants to feel like they're getting accurate answers out of us. There are no accurate answers a year out. There just aren't.
My last question is the marketing for this movie. I don't think there's been a blockbuster movie that I've ever seen the marketing for that never showed me any of the tentpole action scenes at all in it. Yeah. How did this come about? Who was this pitched to you? Was Disney on board from the beginning, or did you guys pitch it we need to not show anything?
Look, first of all, there's nobody better at marketing than Disney. Oh, yeah. They're amazing, right? They're brilliant at it.
But this is unprecedented.
It is. You're totally right. And we talked about it early on. We're like, guys, there's very little that you can draw from this movie. This is going to be a huge challenge for you. And they're like, all right, we'll take that challenge. And they're very creative about how they approached it. But I think that they believe, you probably have to ask them this question directly to get a better answer, a more thorough answer. But at the end of the day, they were okay with that. They felt like this movie was in the kind of place where they could limit themselves in that way and not blow up their release. Yeah. As to why or how, those are the sort of that's the mad science of movie distribution. Or movie marketing.
And it was everybody collectively. It was we want to be as restrained as possible with this. We want to preserve the integrity of the storytelling and preserve that experience for people to see it. In a culture that wants everything yesterday and wants to know the title of your movie a year before it's released. that that again we provide like a secure and safe space for this thing to be screened by people who've committed 11 years of their heart and soul and emotion to this. Can't imagine somebody who, there's we hear a lot of like beautiful stories about people and the way that they connect to Marvel, and it's either help them with depression or through someone's death in their life, or help them connect as a family or with their friends. Or those people do not want the experience of sitting in that movie theater ruined because we have we have a culture driven by like monetization of of spoiling information.
I totally get it. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank you.
Now, are we ever going to get a cameo from you in the movie?
No, I'm not an actor.
Nah.
Thank
you guys.
Great group of questions, man.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Pleasure.
There you have it, my interview with Joe and Anthony Russo from the Avengers Endgame junket. You can read that in its entirety, linked in the show notes, or on slashfilm.com. You can find this podcast, Slash Film Daily, published every weekday on all your popular podcast apps. Please head on over to our iTunes page, give us a 5-star review, tell your friends, spread the word, and we'll see you tomorrow.